learn about Gemara. We are up to the Chaf from Aleph, the Mishnah. What happens if Nodar b'Chedim? He used the word Chedim. Now, previously we learned to use the word Chedim. We don't know if it meant Chedim of Kainim, of Chedim based on English. Here we use the word Chedim, and afterwards he comes along and he gives an explanation, and which before we said we follow explanation, but this explanation here is basically completely dismissing the neder. He's saying I was just basically like mocking. All I meant was I am making a neder that this bread should be like what I catch. My catches in the sea, in the net. In other words, it's totally mutter. He used the word carbon. He said that he made a car. He said, make a squaring life of carbon. Then he said, when I said that this bread should be like a carbon, I didn't mean a carbon in the base of English. I meant like gifts you give to the royal family. Then he said, Hari atzmi carbon. He said, I am a carbon. According to some of the Shani, he meant that he himself should become a carbon, or that he said to his friend, you cannot have any benefit from me, just like you cannot have a benefit from a carbon. But Amar, he said, later on, he said, when I said the word atzmi, you thought I meant myself. Nah, etzim, a bone. I have a bone, and as someone was trying to say, in a box, and I use that. I try to trick you thinking that you're making neder, but I wasn't making neder at all. Or he said, I don't want my wife to have any benefit from me. Then he said, I didn't mean this wife, I meant the wife I had before. He only said it to the sort of, I guess he wanted her to do something for him or something. Since he explains his neder, none of these are really a neder anymore, so you don't have to go and ask the dayanim or the three people to go ahead and be matzah neder. There's no neder here in the first place. Because he's telling us that this is what his intention was. However, if they asked him, if they were asked, then if they were asked. Now we're going to ask a question: who came and asked what's going on here? We do two things according to the Meir. First, we punish the person for being so taking it so lightly, the whole idea of the Nedarim, and plus we are stringent with them. What exactly means? We'll see in a minute. Divrei Meir. The Chachamim say we don't punish, but we don't just say, okay, we're mavatal and eder. We say, let's find if you would have realized this and this and this and this, give a pesach from somewhere else. Would you have still made the conditions would have changed? Would you have made the neder and so on? And it's not a noila. Noila means that if something new happened that wasn't around then. That's not something that was around already then. But if you would have realized, if you would have thought about it, you would never have done this in the first place. So you have to pay whether they're agreeing with the Chachamim and Meir, Machmirin, or whether they're saying something different as a Machlekes Rishonim. A Machmirin might mean that that you have Charata, and the Chachamim say no, we need a Pesach. We'll learn later on the different Pesach and Charata, different ways of how to unravel, annul, or neder. Umelamdin Oisan, and we teach these people we don't want them to treat the Nedarim so lightly. Now, obviously, there's a contradiction here. We first would say that you don't even have to ask, and then you say, if you ask, what's going on here? And you have to be mataned. So you say, Hoguvakash. This doesn't make sense. I'm going to just say, Einisholi Lahen. First, you tell her there's no shaila at all whatsoever. And then you tell her, well, Tony, what's going on over there? Yeah, three more answers. They don't have to ask. When is that said by a Talmud Chacham? It doesn't have to ask. When Amaretz comes and they do this, we punish them. Why do we punish them? So why? Is it because they don't treat the Nedarim seriously, so therefore by Amaretz, we don't want them to get in the habit of making the Nedarim? I mean, the Chachamim generally don't make the Nedarim. Or is the word we don't trust the Amaretz? Maybe later on he thought, hey, what about what I do? And he comes up with the concocted story that when he said the word carbon, he meant carbon from malach. We don't trust him. Therefore, we want them to be matzah neder. By saying a Talmud Chacham, we trust that he's telling the truth. Like we had by El Metzias, Talmid Chacham don't lie. It's the criteria with Talmud Chacham, except the three cases. Says the Gemara. We understand when you tell us that you are machmir. We don't help them out and say, oh, you have charata. We don't open the door for them, and we're the ones who introduced the idea of charata. We don't do that. They have to come up with it on their own. What do you mean we punish them? What's the punishment? What do actually we do? Give them malchus? No malchus by the Nedarim. What do we do? Unless he actively went against it, what do we do? Tanya look the Braisa. Misha Nozar, a guy made Naziris, and then 10 days went by, he didn't observe his Naziris. In this cock, and then he comes to Rav, he's already Mata Neder, which you can. But we don't like the idea that he made a Neder, and then he decided that not to keep it, abide by it, and then he thought to rely on the fact that it'll go tomorrow, in a week, in a month, to a Rav, and to be Mata Neder. We don't like that. So therefore, what do we do? We will not convene a bezin for him. If for a week went by that after he made that neder that he'll be a nazir, and he didn't observe the laws of nazir, so then 10 days first you have to observe the laws of nazir, and then come to us and we'll be matzah neder. That's the punishment. David Rabbi Yehuda. Same thing about a neder in our Mishnah. If he made a neder and he said that in a certain amount of time he won't, he won't eat bread for a week, and then right away he started eating bread, relying that it'll be matzah neder. So whatever it is, this bread should be like a carbon, with his whole story about a carbon of malachim. We're going to say first step for 7 days don't eat bread. Then come talk to us. This is only said Benazidis Muetis when it's a short period. Avo Benazidis Maruba, longer Benazidis, Daya Lamed. No, if he just said Naziris, that's 30 days. But if he said I want to be in another for a year, and 6 months went by before he decided to go Mataneda, we're not going to force him to be for 6 months. It's too much, so we're going to only do 30 days. What about a neder? Is a big machlekes shining by a neder as well. So some say that a neder is exactly the same thing. We learn neder from Nazir that the maximum is 30 days. Others go a step further. From here, we learn out that a stam neder is 30 days. And the third opinion is that a neder, if it's forever, then that's the time, whatever the time is. As is this. Says the Gemara. Rabbi Yosef, Rabban said, "Ain't this cognitive?" Since Rabban came along and said, "We don't want to listen to this person who plays around with the daughter." But then he asks us, "Me mataneder is beidinah the mizdakila abachapit." If a bezin decides to hear and be mataneder, they're not doing the right thing. Rabbi Yaakov, when we go a step further, Mishamtin, there's such a bezin that are reckless, and we should put them in chayim. The Chachamim say we don't punish, but what we do is we do poishchil pesach. How do we learn? You should not get in the habit of making the darim. Because the end it'll lead to that you will also be moil. You'll transgress. To gives us in the Gemara. Either bin a darim, you'll transgress the darim. You make a proper neder, a real neder, and then you won't keep it, and you'll be get malchus. Or eventually lead you to shvuos, which is restrictive, and shvuos use the Abish's name and all that. That's number one. Balti Rogil, the Machlekes are showing. What about making a neder for a good cause, for a mitzvah? Does that come under this umbrella as well? It's only it's not a great idea to do it or not. Balti Rogil, it's amar you don't befriend an amar too much and eat by them. So they'll give it to tevel. And whenever he'll give you the truma because they took care of truma, but he'll give you food before even they set aside the truma. Balti Rogil is a kohen amar, and don't become to befriend a kohen amar. Just serve the truma. He'll give you to eat truma. These are the advice that it gave over here. And do not talk, don't have long discussions with a woman. Otherwise, you'll end up coming to the niyuf. And this one we talk about, but in the Mishnah it talks about that it's your own wife. So what do you mean by niyuf? So niyuf means that while she's a nida, you'll also have relations. Anybody who stares at women, eventually you'll come to a sin with women. If you look too hard, the stackle is like peering for a long time. And even at the sole of their feet, you will have children that are not proper, because you'll have lewd thoughts. Even your wife, while she's in a state of a nida, if you're peering for enjoyment, you will have the wrong thoughts, and therefore your children that will won't be in, and if you have these thoughts while you're having tashmish, you'll have children that are not moganim, they're not proper. When we say now let's stare at heel, she squats. So that means that by looking there, you look at other parts, interior parts. Time we learned. It says in Pasuk, we had something very similar in Yevamos. We had Moshe said to the people, "Don't be scared of Hashem." The Abishai wants to test you, and he wants you to show fear on your faces, so you don't sin. What does that mean? Zubusha. This is one of the things that arrest, that sort of control our behavior, is the fact that we have shame. and therefore in public we won't do the wrong thing because we're embarrassed. The built it to avoid you from doing sin, prevent you from sin. Shame brings you to behave. We're not talking about guilty, we're talking about shame. We can't remember when we say a good sign by a person is that he has shame. Call Adam say anybody who has shame generally doesn't sin too quickly because he's embarrassed. What the add is if somebody does not have any the quality of shame, but you do, he's brazen, then you know we had similar to 3 signs by the Yid. In fact, there's a whole ancient there's a whole thing in the Rezer about how we take those signs for if the person has those signs that are good enough to identify someone as a Yid or not. But they need all 3 signs. We had by Shani Rachmanim Gerim Chasad. You have to have shame, you have to have compassion, and you have to have Gerim Chasad, and you have to be generous and to want to share. So it means the ancestors of Har Sinai. 4 things I was told by Malachim. Chigrin. Why do you have kids that are Olympic? Because when they have intimate relations with their wife, they have it in a non-conventional way. So therefore, just since that's on the thighs over here, also the kids can't walk properly. Ilmin, why they mute? Because in intimacy, they behave in not the correct way. And Charashim, and why are they deaf and mute? They talk too long and they're during Tashmish. We'll see in a minute. We actually had a Gemara Chagiga, of Hema base, where Rav Kahana was hiding under Rav's bed and he was listening to how Rav was talking to his wife. And then afterwards he came over to Rav and said, "This is what you do," and whatever, and I'll give him a chiluk. What he was doing there, and was had a brachas, the therapeutic. We'll see in the Gemara's second. Sumim blind, we play mahaba. Why do children sometimes blind? They should mistake them by some often. They appear too long in the But I mean, I'll ask you a question. Charles Imer Shalom. They asked Imer Shalom, which is that's the sister of Rabbi Gamliel, the wife of Rabbi Lezer ben Hurkes. They asked her, why are your kids so handsome? And why are your kids flawless? The Gashmis. And I get the Ruchnis as well. Amrlan, she said to them, my husband doesn't have any intimacy with me and talk with me. When all my neighbors are up, so they shouldn't hear. Or when people are waking up ready. This is where it comes the idea of midnight, because then it's quiet around the place and everybody's asleep, so nobody hears what goes on in our house. So the intimacy is very, very private. And also api Kabbalah, why dafka should be chatzei salayla. And when we finally do talk, and it doesn't mean just talking, it means having tashmish. Megala tefach and mechasa tefach. Different Rishonim learn different ways, but basically Rashi learns that he uncovers her, he covers her there with her own clothes, he covers her with his clothes. This way they're always discreet. The doima olav, and he doesn't spend too much time. He behaves kamisha kafu shade, as if he's forced into this, to have children. So the only way to go about it, or he has a mitzvah of oina. So not something that he's doing it purely out of pleasure. But marginally matam, and I said to him, why? If I do this too much for the pleasure, then other women might give me the same pleasure, and I will have lewd thoughts. The nim to bona boil them mamzetis. What do you mean the children will come to mamzetis? What do you mean children will come to mamzetis? It doesn't mean that we real mamzetim. As if they're mamzetim. If you're thinking about another woman while you're having touch with your wife, then that child that you can see from that is as if they're a mamzer, a spiritual mamzer. But what do we see from here? At midnight, they would talk to each other. You just said before you shouldn't be talking to each other. So the face you should, like kasha. While you're having tashmish, to talk about tashmish, that's all right. You want to entice it and to set the mood. But other things you should be talking then at that time. Says the Gemara further. This that he says he shouldn't have that kind of thing. He was a strong words here. Kol masha adam reitze lasses b'ishta ois. You can behave in the bedroom any way they want. Moshel, and the moshel, I'm not sure what it adds. Lebasar habom bebeis hateva. You get meat from a beis hateva. Ratzel leechel the melech oichle. You want salt, you can salt it. Tzali oichle. You want to roast it, you can roast it. Mevushel, cook it oichle. Shaluk, stew it oichle. Bechein dog. What do we have to have another moshel of fish? Habom mitzayit. That was brought to you by a trapper, fisherman. You can do it whatever you want. Same thing here. There's no laws in the Torah of how one should behave in the bed. Not like the Yechim and the Havoy wants to say. Amar Amema, Man Malach Hasharis. But the Yechim, the way he said the name Malach Hasharis. Who are these Malach Hasharis that talking to? These are the Rabbanim. These are the Rabbanim, not Malach. Now, even though Torah Lebeshemayim, and so what's the big deal? Maybe it was real Malachim. The Gemara has to prove it's not real Malachim. But it wouldn't prove it if technically we would say that Yechim the way was talking to Malachim. And he's more than happy to announce it to the world. What's a technical problem? Because even though we say Torah L'Shemayim, that when it comes to that's when it's talking about halach. When it comes to a Metzius, telling us how what the facts are. This is the facts of nature. So if they're telling us that you shouldn't that your children will be like Mamzedim, that's a fact of nature. So therefore, how can we argue the malach? We keep it to Allah. They know much better how the kid comes out. So if the Malachim are separated from humans, these Rabbanim are separated from everybody else. Or others say Mitzayim, like Rashi says, is by the way, the Ran who says Mitzayim means separate, and others say separated, he brings it out from Haggadah. Melamed Shahayu Yisrael Mitziyonim Sham, says Haggadah. But he Sham the Gadol, Melamed Shahayu Yisrael Mitziyonim. When Mitziyonim, so we say to them, he's excellent. Mitziyonim means that they were separated from everybody else. Rashi says they wore tzitzis on the outside. We had in Shabbos at Chotev, Friday, would put on the tzitzis, look like a malach. He doesn't come to the Rebbe. The Rebbe came to the Rebbe. He said, Rebbe, I tried to have normal conventional relations with Havcha. My husband came along and turned me over. What a chutzpah. I'm lebiti. The Torah says he can. You want me to stand up against the Torah? The Torah says, like we just said a minute ago, like a fish or like a meat. Who doesn't come to the Rav? Similar story before Rav. I'm the Rebbe. I wanted to have conventional Havcha, and he turned me around. These are kind of shilos Rabban used to have. So he said, he said, he was a bit more indiscreet. How are you different than a fish? Because the Bashal gave a form of a fish. Okay. It says in the Pasuk you shouldn't go follow the lust of your eyes. You shouldn't drink from one cup and think about another cup. In other words, while you're having a relationship with your wife, don't think about another woman. We're not only talking about another friend of woman, even though you have two wives. And while you're having relations with one, you're thinking about the other one, that's a problem. Then says the Pasuk, I will separate from you, I'll filter from you. The rebels and the sinners be in me. These are the children of 9 different misbehaviors, and they're called Bnei Asnat Meshagach. You have a chance, you can look up the Balat Turim. I didn't say I want to bring you there, but the Balat Turim and Pashas Bezchanan on the Session Nibis. He says there, he says the test has tagin on it in the Torah. Why does the letter test have tagin? Like Kirovim, to tell you that there are 9 kinds of children if the parents misbehave in the bedroom, they're going to have these kind of faults in the future. And he's going to say 9 kinds of misbehaviors. That's 9 kinds of children, 9 kinds of misbehaviors. And he adds a little bit to this Gemara here. He gives an explanation on each one of them. Anyway, the first one is, and not everyone agrees with actually all the types. First one is B'nai Ema. If you instill fear in your wife, you sort of forced her, coerced her in having relations with you, but not mamish forcing, but because she's scared of you, and therefore you didn't have to say anything. She's just generally scared of you, petrified, and therefore you had relations. The children born from that union are not going to be the way they should be. Or B'nai Anusa, a step further. You actually raped her. She refused and you forced yourself on her. And the children born from that are not going to be proper children. And they can't leave it like one. Then we have B'nai Nidri. If he or she were put in Chaydim, sorry, B'nai Snua. You hate her. But you have to live together. Her father's very rich. So you're stuck together. So you hate her. And you have relations. The children from that union are not, doesn't bode well for them. But they need it. One of you are a chedim, b'nei temura. That let's say you have 2 wives and you thought you're going on wife number 1 and you end up in the wrong bedroom with wife number 2. You didn't realize it till much later. Or that he actually wanted to have a relation with another woman, and he ended up having a relationship with his own wife. And we actually had that story with Yishai. Yishai wanted to have relations with a Shifa, and he ended up in the wrong room, and he ended up with another woman, and the child was David. That's why they called David. They treated him as a mamzer more than all of his brothers. As it says right here, that the child of such a union is like a mamzer. So, and Yishai was supposed to be a tzaddik that never committed a sin, and the player didn't. That's B'nai Tamura. He swapped B'nai Meriva. This is a step less than a snua. Someone that you're constantly quarreling with, your wife that you're constantly quarreling with. You don't hate each other, but there's no love there. It's a marriage of convenience. Actually, so you should have put B'nai Meriva right next to B'nai Snua. You bunched them together. B'nai Shikris, they were intoxicated, inebriated, which was Maisa. So therefore, you didn't have in mind to do L'Shem Shemaim or anything else. B'nai Gerushas Haleb, you already decided you want to divorce her. You didn't tell her yet. And then you had relations with her. Or B'nai Arvubia. B'nai Arvubia, again, we have a different opinion of what it means. Some say that that you had a relation with a woman, a whole bunch of women there, you pulled one of them out and you had a relation, you can't remember which one it was. Or she had a relation with a whole bunch of men, she doesn't really know who the father is. Or she left another husband and you married her 7 months later, so now she becomes pregnant. We don't know. You married her less than 3 months later, and we don't know whose husband that is. Or others say that even though she's your wife, because she had a relation with so many other men, and you did have a relation with her, it seems that, according to some Nachrim and Snapshot, that a few people together, each beer adds to the actual formation of the child. We had a Rashi. The Rashi said that it's possible that you can after you become pregnant, you can have another child, have another relation, and a month later you get pregnant again. And others say that no, that means somehow or another all the shifazet join together forces and somehow or another create something. Says the Gemara, you're telling me. And the last one, if she entices you, that's a bad thing. Any woman that the husband entices them, will have such immense, tremendous children. Shall be built. It wouldn't even be equal to by Moshe. It says, Moshe Rabbeinu, say by Yisrael, it says Moshe, let's find people who are chachamim, nevonim, uksiv. What do they find? The Ekedish of Steichen, 5 leaders like Ksiv nevonim. There's no nevonim there. But Ksiv, yet it says by Leah, when she enticed Yaakov to come to her tent, when she got to secure the right to bring Yaakov to her tent from Leah, from Rachel, it says Yisachar Chamay got him. What caused Yisachar a donkey there? That what do you call it? Because why? What was that zeicher that my donkey took Yaakov away from the tent of Rachel and brought her to the tent? My tent is because because she wanted it so much and she convinced Yaakov to come. And the child from that union was Yisachar, and Yisachar was a maven. So we see that if a woman tries to entice the husband, it's a schus. When answer there's ways and ways. There's a way to do it in a very discreet way, circumspect. And there's a way to be grub, of course. Hadnalach the elu mutari. Okay, that was a little breather. Back to the Nedarim. Abba Nedarim, the 4 kinds of Nedarim. He did a chamim. The 4 kinds of Nedarim. Chamim said chatchila. They're not a neder at all. You don't even have to be sure. You don't have to do anything. Number 1 is nidrei zeruzi Nedarim. That the only reason why you make it is not because you actually meant it to be a neder. You're just doing it to motivate yourself or motivate someone else. That's number 1. Number 2 is nidrei haboy. Haboy machlekes Rishonim means exaggerations, which we'll see in the next list of examples. Or haboy means pust, empty, hollow. Nidrei, if a guy says, my bread should be also to me if I didn't see 600,000 people yesterday. And you didn't see 600,000 people yesterday. It's just an exaggeration. So therefore the bread is still also, you didn't really mean it has to be 600,000. Or just empty words. Anyway, the nidrei gogus, if you made a neder, it turned out to be was a shogeg. You said, I never ate this bread, but you forgot. You forgot. So that neder is not a neder. And if I did eat the bread, that's not a neder. Or nidrei oinsi. You're in a situation you're forced to say something. We'll see later. Now, this mission only discussed nidrei zuzim. What's that? Kate said, this happens all the time when you haggle. Somebody was selling an object, and he said, koinim. I swear that the money you'll give me will be forbidden to me. I will not take a grush less than the seller. Seller 4 dinim. I will not take a cent less than 4 dinim. Another guy says, I promise you, I'll give you a cent more than two. And before you know it, he's paying 3. He's paying 3. But this guy said if he gets less than 4, and then the bread will be also. And this guy said if I pay more than 2, the also, no such thing, because it's not a neder. They never meant it, as more explained. A man who's the author of this Mishnah here, right now thinks the reason is, the problem is, we had it before. It says that in order if a person is walking by and this guy says, "Oh, I'll be a nazir," if he's a nazir, another guy says, "I'll be a nazir," if he's not a nazir. Neither of them are nazir because there's you weren't definitive about it at the time you made the neder. Haflo has to be clear, patently clear. 100% you're going to become a nazir or not. For that the situation that we learned all about yesterday. So the noble, you cannot make it a tanai by naziris. And we learned the Nedarim from naziris. You cannot make a tanai by neder. You cannot say that if this and this, then I'll make a neder. You can't make a tanai because if you make a tanai, at this moment, at this juncture, you have no idea what's going to be. How's it going to turn out? Will I make this? Will this neder be a neder? Won't be a neder? And we learn how flaw. I don't have flaw either because it makash to nazir or because the pasuk actually starts off isha kiyafu. Rabbi says nothing to do with how flaw. You think that the author of our Mishnah is a tarfur? No, it's going to everybody. And the logic of our mission is not that it was a proper neder, but you try to make a neder, but the problem was that the neder itself halachically wasn't valid because you didn't know at the time. No, the reason is because it's not a neder. Why not? Meek tanish name rotzu. Does it say that what? Later on, it turned out to be that they both agreed. Shneim reitik tani from the outset. They never meant to make it. When he said not a penny less than 4, you think he meant not a penny less than 4? That's how you deal. That's how you haggle. That's how you negotiate. And when the other guy said I'm not paying a penny more than 2, you think he meant that? That's how you negotiate. So therefore, it was never a ned in the first place. Okay, we'll stop.